Okay, so is it visible to
Yes, sir.
everybody?
Yes, sir.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Thank you. So there, so look at the title of this presentation: frequency distribution and graphical representation. Frequency distribution and graphical representation. And this applies to interval scale data. Okay. So first, let us note down some of the characteristics of frequency distribution. Uh, when we group the interval scale data into categories, then order these categories. Ordering these categories means arranging them either in ascending order or in descending order, and then make use of these groupings to give an overall picture of the distribution of cases. Now, some of you may be finding it difficult to understand the term distribution of cases, or may also be finding it difficult to understand what is grouping interval scale data into categories. All these things will be getting slowly, gradually clearer as we proceed with a numerical example. But first, let us just go through some of the important characteristics of frequency distribution. So, what is the first thing that we need to know about it? What is frequency distribution? Frequency distribution is nothing but grouping the interval scale data into categories. Do you remember what is an interval scale data? Interval scale data is quantitative data. For example, income, height, weight. These are interval scale data. So when we group interval scale data into different classes, say 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, and so on, then that is called frequency distribution. We then order these classes in ascending or descending order, and then we use these uh, categories and the frequencies of different categories to get an overall picture of the distribution of cases. Distribution means around which value most values are falling, around which, let us say, income, or around which weight most people are found. So that is what we call distribution of cases. One of the most famous distributions happens to be what we call normal distribution. And then we also have something called skewed distribution. We will come to that in a short while from now. Now, what do we achieve by categorizing interval scale data? In doing so, we can boil down information about a very large number of cases into a simple form. So when you have data, then probably they are in raw form and you cannot draw too many conclusions out of it unless you arrange them, unless you group them, unless you categorize them into some classes. So once we arrange them into frequency distribution, then it enables the reader to picture the way the cases are distributed. Whether there are very high values, whether there are very low values, or whether most of the values are concentrated around a central value, something like that. Then, once we have categorized them, then interval scale data are to be summarized, and initial decision must be made as to the categories that will be used. What categories will we use? Will we use 1020 or 10 to 30 or 1040? How many categories will be used? all these decisions must be taken. And one thing that we should note is that most of the time the classification scheme is quite arbitrary. You can decide whether it will be 10 to 20 or 20 to 30 or 10 to 40. It's very, very arbitrary, but we'll have a lot more to say about this a little later. And one last thing about it is, to decide how many categories to use and where to establish the cutting points, we have to take a call. What is a cutting point? So there are two things, lower class cut point and the upper class cut point. Lower class cut point is the smallest value that could go in a class. For example, if your first class begins with 10 and goes up to 20, then your lower class cut point is 10. And then the next class is 20 to 30. So the upper class cut point is 20, which is the smallest value that could go in the next higher class. So equivalent to the lower cut point of the next higher class. Now, all these discussions may seem to you to be a little difficult to understand because we have not yet summarized this data, this information by means of a numerical example. What we will do next is we'll try and summarize it by means of a numerical example. So consider this. This is voter turnout in municipal elections. Let us say, what does this 39.2 indicate? That of all the eligible voters, how many cast vote? 39.2%. Take this value, 14.3. What does it show? Any idea? What does it show? Any idea? Anyone who would like to respond? Say 14.3 or 29.2? Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so can anyone tell what does 14.3 represent according to the voter turnout in municipal elections? 14.3 show that of the total number of eligible voters, only 40% have voted. 22.9% show that of all eligible voters, 23% have voted. So this is nothing but the voter turnout in municipal elections. You may be knowing that there is something called municipal elections, which happens once in 5 years, wherein we select our ward commissioner or ward councillors. They represent their own ward, and all the sanitation kind of issues are handled by them. When citizens point out some sanitation issues prevailing in their area, then these representatives of people take this matter to the municipality, and the authorities there try to sort out those issues. So this is voter turnout in municipal elections. Now, how many pieces of information do we have here? Total number of information that we have here is 93. Now, what can you make out of this data? I mean, it is so huge, and then it is not arranged. And if we are asked to draw some conclusion from it, then what kind of conclusion can you draw from it? Hardly any. So therefore, we need to make something. We need to do something so that we are able to draw some conclusions. So raw data presented in this manner are almost useless in giving the reader a clear picture of what is taking place. This will be especially true if the number of cases is very large. For example, in this case, it is very difficult to get a clear mental picture of the total district. distribution. So what do? We try to we try to arrange them in terms of frequency distribution. Now there are three frequency distribution tables which are shown to you in this particular slide. The first one is table 4.1, second one is 4.2, and the third one is table 4.3. Now, what is the difference between these three tables? You will notice that the first table is data grouped into intervals of 5%. For example, from 0 to 5, 5 to 9.9, you could have also written, instead of 9.9, you could have written 10. Instead of 4.9, you could have written 5. But if you have written 0 to 5 and then 5 to 10, then which class will you categorize a value which is equal to 5? The first class or the second class?
The first class.
The second class. Basically, 0 to 5 basically means 0 but under 5. 5 means 5 but less than 10. So instead of writing in 0 to 5, 5 to 10, which is the normal case, which is how we normally write our frequency distributions, here, just in order to remove any confusion, we have given it in terms of this. So 0.0 to 4.9, 5.0 to 9.9, 10.0 to 14.9. So basically, this data shows an interval of 5%. What about the table 4.2? What is the interval? It is 10%. So 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, and so on. And what about the third table? This shows an interval of 20%. That is 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 50, 60, and so on. So basically, there are three frequency distribution tables. The first table has an interval of 5%, the second 10%, and the third 20%. Now, why do we have three different tables with three different intervals? So let us see why. Now, when you have a table like table 4.1, then count the number of classes that you have. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. You have 17 classes here. How many classes do you have in table 4.2? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So you have 9 classes. And how many in the third one? 5 classes. So the question is, which one will you prefer? More classes or less number of classes? This is the question. So this is generally an arbitrary decision, whether you want to have more or less, because there is no known scientifically validated mathematical formula to suggest that you should have X number of classes. But there are a few things which you may consider to decide how many classes you should have. First is concentrate on first table. Now, find out the pattern of the frequency and then try to draw a conclusion. Now tell me, what does this 8 mean? What does this 8 show? Please respond.
So number of person in that range.
Number of person between, yes.
Number of person in that range, 15 to 19.9.
Yeah, number of persons who are falling in which category? 15 to 20. So number of persons falling in category 15 to but under 20 is 8. This is the interpretation. Now just go through this frequency column. This frequency column. What do you notice? First, it goes up, then it falls, then it goes up, again it falls, then goes up, then falls, remains the same, then falls, goes up, and then there are many classes where there's no frequency at all. And then finally you have a class which has one frequency. Now this is what we call a jagged pattern, or discontinuous pattern. This is something which we do not want. Why? Because we want to draw certain conclusion about the concentration of values around some values, concentration of frequencies around some values. So it would be better if we have a smooth pattern. So what do we do in order to convert a jagged pattern into a smooth pattern? Let's see whether we can achieve this smooth pattern by reducing the number of classes and increasing the interval from 5% to 10%. Now, when we increase the number of classes from 5% to 10%, what do we notice in terms of the pattern of frequency? First it goes up and then it continuously declines, except in case of the last one. But here also there are two classes which doesn't have any frequency. But this is unavoidable. You can avoid it only if the last class has an interval greater than the interval of the first few classes, which is generally not recommended. So let it be 0, 0 and then finally 1. But this gives you a better picture. Similarly, if you reduce the number of classes to just 5, what happens to the pattern? Pattern remains almost the same. First it goes up, and remember that it starts with a very high frequency, then goes up, and again the next number is very high frequency, and then it falls very sharply, and then finally you have 1, and the total number of cases is 93. Now you tell me, out of these 3, first having 17 classes, second having 9 classes, and third having 5 classes, which one will you prefer?
Sir, the second one.
The second one. Why is that so? Why not the third one? Of course, the first one is ruled out because the pattern of frequency is very uneven, jagged. But why not the third one? Why not table 4.3?
So it's a bit ambiguous. So it's a bit ambiguous in nature because it's not properly defined in which interval, how many number of occurrences are there.
It's not ambiguous. It's completely unambiguous. You know that there are 22 people who are falling in the categories 0 to 20. 0 to 20. This is completely defined.
Okay, sir.
Sir, because in third
Table
one,
4.2 is a bit detailed as compared to table 4.3.
Yeah.
It is giving us quite relevant details as compared to that.
Yeah. So basically, you know, whenever you construct a table like 4.1, 4.2, or 4.3, what happens is you suffer loss of information. Loss of information. Whenever you will construct a frequency distribution, you will lose some information. Now, in what sense am I saying that you will lose information? So think of this 17, which falls in the category 10 to 20. This is the class and the total frequency is 17. Now, what does 17 mean? That there are 17 municipal districts where the voter turnout is between 10% but less than 20%. But which municipality has exactly what voter turnout is no longer known to us? Can you actually guess to what is the first municipality which falls under the second category, that is in this category, what is the actual voter turnout of this category among the 70 municipal districts? You cannot. All that you can say is that it is between 10 and 20%. So you have lost information in the sense that you no longer have actual information. You only have clubbed or classified information. But when you have only a very few number of classes, the loss of information is even more. That 61 fall between 20 and 40. So basically, if you compare table 4.3 with table 4.2, you will find that the loss of information in table 4.3 is more than the loss of information in table 4.2. Likewise, loss of information in table 4.2 is more than the loss of information in 4.1. But if you go to the first slide, the raw data slide, then here there is no loss of information. Here we know that each municipal district has exactly what voter turnout. But the moment you construct the frequency distribution, you have lost the information, which was detailed information. Now you no longer know this one is what is exact value of this one frequency. What is the exact value of this one frequency? Whether it is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, what is it? So that is what we call loss of information. So is it a great loss? Of course, it is not a great loss, and we will explain why it is not a great loss a little later. But right now, let us just presume that we have understood the concept of frequency distribution. What is frequency distribution? Grouping the data in terms of different categories. And categories are in terms of classes or interval. There are three of them shown here, and we will prefer the second one because the loss of information is relatively less and the frequency pattern is relatively smooth. That is why we go for this one. And then whatever we have discussed so far can be summarized in this way. In table 4.1, examining the frequencies in each category, we see that the picture presented is a rather jagged or even. We have already seen and we have already discussed. For a smoother looking distribution, we can use wider intervals like in table 4.2. 3. If we had used still wider intervals, say 20, picture would have been as shown in table 4.3. Here we are beginning to obscure most of our information. What is obscure? Obscuring most of our information means
Unclear, sir.
Unclear. Hide.
Losing most of our information. So incidentally, we see that in summarizing interval scale data, some important information is practically always lost. Remember this, that some important information is practically always lost. On the other hand, to report all the information is to present so much detail as to confuse rather than enlighten. So if you want to present all the detail, just present the raw data, which we saw earlier. You just present this data. This is in great detail. But what purpose does this great detail serve? It just doesn't serve any purpose. Therefore, we go for a frequency distribution like this, where you lose some information, but you are still able to see around which values most of the data are concentrated. For example, in this case, you can see that most voting districts, that is 39 out of 93, are between 20% and 30%. So this is the information which you have now, which you would not have had you not arranged the raw data in terms of frequency distribution. So that is the major point which we are trying to convey. So first, table 4.1, we see that picture is uneven. Second, we see that in table 4.2, you have a smoother ring distribution. In table 4.3, width is 50, but we start losing a lot of information. And incidentally, whenever you categorize interval scale data in classes, then some information is always lost. But on the other hand, if you report all information in great detail, then it just confuses rather than enlightens. Then there is a concept of cumulative frequency distribution. So this is table 4.4, but the original data are not from table 4.2 or 4.3. This is a separate set of data. And we are not saying anything what kind of data is. All that we know is that this is the table. Now, there are two kinds of cumulative frequency distribution. One is called accumulating up, the other is called accumulating down. And why do we accumulate it? What is the purpose it serves? We will come to that in a short while from now. But let us first see what this is all about. So number of classes 0 to 0, 9.95, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Now, what does this 0, 0 mean? What does this 9.95 mean? What does this 19.95 mean? So this, suppose you have a class start from 0 to 10. Then you have 10 to 20. Then you have 20 to 30 and so on. Now, if your frequencies are, let us say 2, 4 and 2, these are your frequencies. So we write F. And then we accumulate it up. We accumulate it up. So we call it CF, 2, 6, 8. How have we got 6? 2 plus 4 is 6. How have we got 8? 6 plus 2 is 8. Now, what is the interpretation of the first number shown under cumulative frequency column? It is, what is the interpretation? Anyone? What is the interpretation of the second entry shown under the cumulative frequency column? And third,
That's the range from the interval from 0 to 20. The total frequency is 6. The total number of values in that range is 6.
Yeah, exactly. So in the first case, we say that there are two values which are under 10, right? In the second case, what do we say? There are 6 cases which are under 20. And in the third case, what do we say? There are 8 cases which are under 30. So that is what this column shows. What is the total number of cases under 0? None. What is the total number of cases under 10? 5. What is the total number of cases under 20? 22, and so on. Now, this last value, the last value is 93, which is always equal to the total frequencies. What does this 93 here mean? That all 93 values are under 90. All are under 90. What does 91 mean? What does 91 mean?
So it is a
All
total frequency.
values are under 50.
That 91 frequencies are below 50. 91 frequencies are below 50. What does 61 mean?
61 frequencies
61
are below
values are
below 30.
below 30.
Below 30. 61 frequencies are below 30. And how have we accumulated it? Just like this. 2, then 2 plus 4, 6, then 6 plus 2, 8. You can also count it backwards. For example, what must be the frequency of this? 91 minus 83, that is 8. What must be the frequency of the next one? 92 minus 91, that is 1, and so on. So this is the cumulative frequency calculated up. So you cumulate it up, you start with the lowest class. But when you cumulate it down, you start with the highest class. Are you getting what I'm saying? What is the difference between cumulating up and cumulating down? When you cumulate up, then you start with the lowest class. And then when you cumulate it down, then you start with the highest class. Let me give you one simple example. Let's see, you have this 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50. Let us say we have these 5 classes. And the frequencies are 5, 10, 15, 4, 1. These are the frequencies. These are the frequencies. Now, let us cumulate it up. Let us cumulate it up. And then we will cumulate it down. So, cumulating up, what does that mean? This is cumulating up, first one. And in the first one, we start with the lowest one. We start with the lowest one. So, we start with 5. The lowest class is 0 to 10, so we start with 5. Then what do? We
15.
add 10, 5.
15,
This is 15. Then
30,
30,
30.
30.
Then
34,
34. And then 35.
35, 35.
Okay. Now, so how do we interpret cumulative frequency up? Say, this is 30. What is the interpretation of 30?
That there
30
are
people are there.
30
Frequencies
30
are in the
people
range
are
of
there
30.
from
13 people below
Zero.
more than
30
20 but
people
less
in
than
range of
30.
0 to 30.
There are 30 frequencies whose values are under 30. Look at this. Whose values are under 30.
Under 30.
What about this 34? What about this 34?
There are 34
What is
people
it?
between 0 to
34
40.
frequencies are below 40.
34 people have value under 40. 34 people have value under 40. And all 35 are
Under
Under?
50.
Below 50.
Under
Below 50.
below
Under
50.
50.
So this is the interpretation of cumulating up. What about cumulating down, and how do we do it? So we start with the highest class. This is 1. Then add 4. This is 5.
5.
Then add 15. This is 20. Then add 10. This is 30.
30.
And then finally you have 35. Of course, this and this should be equal because they represent the total frequencies. Now, what is the interpretation of this 20? What is the interpretation of this 20?
There are 20 people from in between 30 to 50.
There are 20
There are
people who are more
50
than
people in
20
between
to
30
50.
and there are 20 people between 30 and 50.
No,
There are 20
20 and 50.
people
20
that
and
are
more than 20, less than 50, sir.
not even more than 20. Here are
20 people who are more than 30.
20 people
The
who are
20 people are more than 30 and less than
More than
50.
30. More than
30
30.
and less than 50.
More than
No,
30 and less than 50.
no. So this 20 means that there are 20 people who are either equal to 20 or more than 20. Similarly, what about this 30? What about this
There are
30?
30.
So they are in the range of 10 to 50.
30 means there
More
are
than
30
10 or
people.
equal to 20.
More than 10.
No.
Equal. Sir,
10
more
or
than 10
more.
and less than 50.
There are 30 people who are equal to 10 or more. Let us say these classes represent your marks in a class test. So how many students have marks equal to 20 or more than 20? Because 20 is the pass marks. 20 is
students.
the pass marks. So how many students have secured pass marks?
20.
20 students. 20 students have secured pass marks. How many students have marks either equal to 40 or more than 40?
Sir, one.
1.
One.
Only one student has marks equal to 40 or more than 40. How many students have marks below 40?
34.
34.
So in this case, you have to go to this column called cumulative frequency up column. So 34 students have marks under 40. And in this case, 20 students have marks either equal to or greater than 20. So this is how we define what? This is how we define cumulative frequency columns, accumulating up, accumulating down. And one more column that you will notice here is the percent column. The percent column. So what is that percent column and how do we calculate it? Now, in order to calculate this, you can get a very simple idea by looking at this entry, 93, which is equal to 100%. What does this mean? Again, this 93 which is equal to 100%. So the
93.93, sir.
percent frequencies are calculated as actual frequency divided by total frequency. Cumulative frequency divided by total frequency. This is the formula for percent calculation. For example, how have we calculated this 23.7?
22 by 93.
22 upon 93. 22 by 93.
Very good. 22 upon 93. How have we calculated this 98.9?
92 by 93.
92 upon 93. 92 upon 93.
92 by
92 by
93.
93.
How have we calculated this 10.8?
10 upon 93.
Huh?
10 upon 93.
10 by 93. So this is how we calculate the percent. Now, what purpose does calculation of percent serve in this case? So let us say we have this number 65.6. We have this number 65.6. What is its interpretation?
Sir, it gives the total percentage out of, it gives the percentage of people out of the total who are in that range.
What is
So below 30. So 65.6% of people are less than 30.
Bilkul, exactly. So that's exactly the correct answer. That 65.6% students have marks below 30. What about 97.8 in the same column?
97.8 people have their marks below 50.
Yeah, 97.8% students have below 50 and so on. Likewise, what about this? 34.4. What is this? 34.4.
So more than 30.
So
Yes.
greater than or
No,
equal
more
to
than
44. Greater than
equal to or more
Or
than
greater.
30.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, equal to or greater. 34.4% students marks equal to or greater than 30. Equal to or greater than 30. So this is what is called cumulating down percent, and the earlier one is cumulating up percent. Remember that these percentages give you additional clarity on the performance of students in an exam or whatever the data represent or whatever the data represent. Okay? Then I just also thought that I'll tell you about how do we construct the frequency distribution, because directly we don't do so. We have to first arrange data in ascending order or descending order. Then we have to count the number of times a certain value has occurred, and then we have to classify it. So in order to show you something like that, here for example, there are 93 values and you have to first arrange them in ascending order, and then you have to count how many times a certain value has occurred. Say for example, 28.1 may have occurred 2 times or 3 times. So in order to show you that, let me take you to a software which is called SPSS. I have shown you this earlier also. So I hope you are able to see this.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then let me explain this briefly so that you are able to make some sense out of it. There are 474 entries in the rows of this table. 474. What does that mean? It means we have information on 474 people. And who are these people? They are bank employees working in a certain bank. And what kind of information do we have about those 474 people or employees? You can see that the data is titled employee data. Can you see it here? Employee data. Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. First employee is a male. He was born on 3rd of February 1952, and he has received education equal to 15 years of schooling. In India, if someone has completed 15 years of education, then most likely that person is a graduate. 10 plus 2 plus 3, right? So that makes it 15. Then you have 3 job categories. They have been categorized as 1, 2, and 3. What are these 3 categories? We can see that also. What are the job categories? Look at this. 0, 1, if someone is under category 1, that person is working as a clerk. If someone has 2 against his or her name, that means he is working as a custodial. Custodial is actually a supervisor. And 3 is the highest post, that is manager. Okay? So let's go back to the data. Let's go back to data. It's difficult for me now because yes, or no. What happened? I again go back to this table data view. So I have gone back to this data view. You can see this now.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now the next two columns, one is salary and the other one is sal begin. Now this is very is the first salary that this employee received when this employee, who is a male, started working. And this 57,000 is the current salary of this person. So you started with 27,000 and you are currently drawing a salary of 57,000. What about this? 98. This is job time in month. So how many months have you already completed in your current job? 98 months. In terms of years, it is 8 years and 2 months. And you joined this job after gaining an experience of 12 years, because your previous experience was of 144 months. So what is your total work experience? 12 years here, 8 years and 2 months here. That is 20 years, 2 months. In 20 years, you have progressed from $27,000 to $57,000. And finally, the question whether you belong to a minority community, what does it mean? 0 means I do not belong to the minority community. 1 means yes, I do belong to the minority community. And if you find a letter 9 or number 9 against someone, it means that the information is missing. We do not know whether the person belongs to the minority community or belongs to the majority community. So let's go back to data view. Okay, so now I am focusing on this column, salary column. How many data points do we have under salary column? 474, because we have information on 474 employees. You can see this one. We have information on 474 employees. What is the last one? 29,400, which belongs to 474th employee. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to construct a frequency distribution of the salary column. But what is the first step that you need to do? You need to first find out how many times this value 57,000 has occurred, how many times this value 40,200 has occurred, how many times this value, how many times this value, and so on. So what we do is we just go to analyze and descriptive statistics and we select frequencies. And then we transfer this current salary column to variables column, and we want statistics like, let us say, quartile, mean, deviation, etc., etc., etc. We need lots of, or we can calculate lots of things here: mean, median, mode, total, standard deviation, minimum value, maximum value, variance, range, standard error of mean, skewness, kurtosis. You can also calculate histogram. We will explain what is histogram later on. So when we click OK, we get a data, we get an output window which will show us the various values which we have asked for. Now this is the frequency distribution which I was talking about. Now just concentrate on this. 15,750 is the lowest value. You can see here. What is the lowest value? Minimum 15,750. What is the highest value? 1,35,000. Okay. Now, how many times has this value occurred? Once. How many times 5900 occurred? Once. How many times 16,200 occurred? 3 times. What is this 6 mean? What does this 6 mean?
Six time occurrence of 19,650.
That there are 6 employees whose salary is equal to 19,650. What about this 5? There are 5 employees whose salary is equal to 8,000. So in this way, we produce a frequency distribution. This is the frequency distribution, but this is a single cut point. This is a single cut point rather than different cut points. So every value is indicated in terms of its frequency, 15750, 5900, and so on. And if you total these frequencies, what total should you get? You should get a total of 474. And likewise, you can calculate the percent also. This 1 is 0.2% of 474. 16,800, whose frequency is 1, is again 0.2%. But one whose frequency is 3 is 0.6%. One whose frequency is 6 is 1.3%. And then you can cumulate the percentages. 0.2, 0.4, 1.1. So what does this 4.2 mean? What does this 4.2 mean? Can anyone tell me what does this 4.2 mean?
So it's less than 18,150.
Sorry?
4.2% people under 18,150.
No, this time you're wrong again.
Equal to or less than, sir.
Equal to or less than that only. Equal to or less than. Yeah.
Equal to or less than. Just answer this question. What does this 30% mean?
30% people are equal to or less than
24,900.
Exactly. So this is how you have the first step. This is called frequency array. What do we call it? We call it frequency array. The difference between frequency array and frequency distribution is only one. That in frequency array, you have a single cut point, whereas in frequency distribution, you have multiple cut points. And when you have multiple cut points, you have classes or interval. From this frequency array, you can construct frequency distribution. For example, what if your first class is between 15,750 and 18,750, that is an interval of 3, then how many values will fall if both are inclusive of it? Then 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2 up to this. So you will accumulate all these numbers, then you will get the total number of frequencies falling between 15,750 and 18,750, including both lower and upper limits. Or if you include under 18,750, then this one will be removed from the aggregate, and this will be the total number. 1 plus 1, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 6. Sorry, up to this one. So in this way, you can do so. In SPSS also, you have a facility to create frequency distribution tables, but that is not the purpose right now. We will skip that and we will go back to our presentation.
So,
Yes.
oh, so the other slide that you were showing right now, it was in the cumulative percentage was an illustration of cumulative frequency up, right?
Yeah.
So why didn't we say that it was either equal to or more? Because that is what we were doing in frequency down.
No, because this is not arranged in terms of classes. This is only a single cut point.
Okay.
And cut point simply includes that value.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right. So we go back to this thing. We go back to what? This one. And then we go for what we call a histogram. So let me show histogram. So you had
Sir, can I just ask
now
one small thing?
histogram of table 4.2. What is
Sir?
table? Any question?
Yeah, sir, can I just clarify just one small thing, sir? In frequency array, we are including the boundary, and in frequency distribution, we are not including the boundaries. Is that so, sir?
When you have classes
Uh-huh.
like 10 to 20, 20 to 30, then the upper limit is not included in the upper
Okay.
in that class.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Because actually it is 10 but under 30.
Under
30 will be 10 but under 20, and 20 will be included in the next class. That is 20 but under 30.
Under 30. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Fine. So now we have to construct a histogram. Now what is that histogram? First, you have class from 0 to 10. Remember? 0 to 10. Have you written it? Have you written the data somewhere? Or shall I go back to the data? So 0 to 10, frequency was roughly 5. Between 10 but less than 20, the frequency is around 18 or 19. Between 20 but less than 30, the frequency is around 39. You can see here 39, because it is slightly less than 40. And then likewise, between 30 and 40, it is about 21, 22. And this one is about 7 or 8. This one is about 1. This is 0. This is 0. This is 1. This is 0. 90 to 100 is 0. Well, there is no need to have 90 to 100 because this is the last one. So what have we done? We have constructed a frequency distribution diagram, which is called a histogram. So let me go back to the data, original data, and show you how we have done it. So this is what you have to concentrate on. This is what you have to concentrate on. No, sorry. This one. This is the
Second one.
0.2. This is the second one. So 0 to 10. Let us do it. So 0, this is 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. And what is the maximum frequency? Maximum frequency is 39. You can see that the maximum frequency is 39. So we have, say, 10, 20, 30, 40. So first interval is 0 to 10, having a frequency of 5. So this is 5. So we draw a rectangle. We draw a rectangle whose height is proportional to 5 and whose width is proportional to 0 to 10. What about the next one? 10 to 20. 10 to 20 has a frequency of 17. Somewhere around here, we will have a frequency of 17. So this is the second one. Then third, 20 to 30 has 39. Somewhere around here. So this is the third one. Then 30 to 40 is 22. 30 to 40 is 22 here. This is 30 to 42. Then 40 to 50 is 8. 40 to 50 is 8. Then 50 to 60 is 1. 50 to 60 is 1. Then nothing here between 60 and 70, nothing here between 70 and 80, and then 1. 1. This is your histogram. This is your histogram. And then you just mark the midpoints of these bars and join them and what you get is a frequency polygon. What you get is a frequency polygon. The frequency polygon is a line which we get by connecting the midpoints of all the bars in a histogram. Is this okay? Can we go back to the earlier slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Will you be able to draw histogram and frequency polygon? So a histogram can be drawn simply by drawing bars whose height should be proportional to the frequency and whose width should be proportional to the interval. And then once you have completed the histogram, the next step is to mark the midpoints of each one of them and draw a line with straight line called, that will give you a curve or a line which is called a frequency polygon. There are two things. One, you join the midpoints, with a straight line, then you will get a frequency polygon. But instead of a straight line, what if you join with a smooth curve? So if you join midpoints with a smooth curve, then you get a frequency curve. So the difference between frequency polygon and frequency curve is only this much. That in frequency polygon, you join the midpoints by straight line, whereas in frequency curve, you join the midpoints by a smooth freehand curve. So we go back to the next slide.
Excuse me, sir.
Histogram. First one is your histogram. Yeah.
So what is the purpose of drawing frequency polygon and frequency curve as well?
Frequency polygon and frequency curve gives you a more useful idea about the distribution of cases. Now, if you have drawn a polygon like this, then what kind of a line or what kind of a curve have you obtained? You have obtained something like a bell-shaped curve, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Have you? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So the moment you know that something is bell-shaped, then it conveys something. Of course, we have not yet discussed what are the characteristics of a bell-shaped curve, which is also called the normal curve. But the moment you draw a frequency polygon or a frequency curve, you get a better idea of the distribution of cases. And in fact, you don't have to draw a histogram. All that you have to draw is to first write down the midpoints of each class, and you plot the midpoint against the frequencies of that class. And you will straight away get a frequency polygon or a frequency curve. And we prefer a frequency polygon over frequency curve over polygon, because curve is a smooth curve. Polygon has kinks in it, because these lines have been drawn by connecting straight lines. Points have been connected using straight lines. So whenever you connect 3 points or 4 points by straight line, then you stop by connecting at the first 2, then you stop by connecting in the next 2, and then you stop connecting in the last 2. So there is a kink at A, B, C, and D. And when you have kinks then it is difficult to treat algebraically. Especially, you cannot use calculus, a concept called differentiation. Now, students who have studied mathematics would know that one of the assumptions of calculating the first derivative or the second derivative is that the function should be continuous, should not have breaks in it. And you have a polygon, there is a break. Therefore, instead of joining them by straight lines, we join them by a curve. So, to answer your question, we not only are content with drawing a histogram, but we also draw a polygon, more preferably a frequency curve, graph for the two cases.
Okay,
And the last one is what we call ogive. The last one is ogive. I would leave ogive's explanation to you. You just go back to any textbook or some website and try to figure out as to how has this ogive been drawn. Remember that this ogive represents cumulative frequency distribution. So it's up to you to decide to find out how do we draw an ogive. And remember, ogives are very, very important part of graphical representation. So when you attend the next class, you should be able to explain to me as to how do we draw an ogive. Is this fine with you?
yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So consider this as your homework. How much time are we left with? We are almost there. It's 11:30. If you have any other question, you can ask those questions. In the next class, we will discuss the graphical representation of categorical data. You can see this is visualizing categorical data through what we call bar chart and pie chart. We will discuss it in the next class. We will also discuss two more kinds of plots. One is called the time series plot and the other is called the scatter plot. And then I'll give you some homework. You will have to learn on your own two things. One, box and whiskers plot, and the other, Pareto chart. So this is not what we are going to discuss today. We will discuss these things tomorrow, bar chart and the pie chart. But right now, I will stop at this point, and then you have a homework also in terms of this exercise. These are data representing annual income of a sample of community residents. You have to prepare a simple array. Simple array means you just arrange the data in ascending order. Then frequency array, that is, after arranging the data in ascending order, indicate how many times a certain data point has occurred, just as we saw in case of this current salary. Then you draw a histogram for it, a frequency polygon, and a ogive for it. I will upload this presentation on your Google Classroom right after the class. Any question?
Sir, will the ogive for cumulative up and down be different?
Cumulative frequency distribution.
Yes, sir.
We have just seen one table of cumulative frequency distribution.
Yes, sir.
Did we?
Yes, sir.
This is the cumulative frequency distribution table. This one. So when you show these two columns in terms of a graph, then you end up getting an ogive of accumulating up type. If you plot these two columns, then you end up getting what? An ogive of accumulating down type.
Cumulative down type.
So,
So both the ogives will be
Sorry?
different in the shape and size.
yeah, of course it will be different because
Yeah.
this is 0 and 0, 9, 10 against 5.
Absolutely.
This is 0 against 0. This is 0 against 90 and 1 against this.
Yes, sir.
So this is 90 against 93. So it will be different. In fact, it will be एकदम mirror image. एकदम
Yeah,
उल्टा हो
mirror
जाएगा.
हाँ, sir.
It will be mirror image.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, so I
Yeah.
have a doubt. Like, whenever we are asked a question to construct a cumulative frequency distribution, so like, do we represent it as a singular table, or do we go for both of them, like cumulative down and cumulative up?
It's better to have all the information included in a table if it asks for it. But the more important point is that you should be able to interpret the numbers. Just going by, preparing these tables mechanically is a rather easier job. You have to learn to interpret those numbers. But I will suggest you have a good point that you not only prepare a frequency distribution, but you also prepare cumulative frequency distribution of the up type, of the down type, prepare a histogram, a frequency polygon, a frequency curve, and ojai. Everything. You should be able to learn a lot because, most powerful statistical analysis is achieved through simple, statistical techniques like these.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I'm now stopping the recording. Who is Manav Harit? Manav Harit, is he present?